Welcome everyone to Life Lessons from Movies, presented by my organization, the Zen of Hollywood, and me, your host, David MacKay. In this segment, we extract life lessons from movies and then use simple and practical tips to help us improve our lives and become happier, which I believe we all desire. Okay, today's theme is freeing ourselves from our prisons. And we'll examine this theme through the good film Outside In, starring Jay Duplass and Eddie Falco. Please know there are spoilers ahead. Okay, this film focuses on this 40-year-old man named Chris who just gets out of prison after being in prison for 20 years for a murder he didn't commit. So he's finally freed, and the rest of the film really focuses on him and his life in his small town as he tries to adjust to life outside of prison. Now, he has some challenges, right? We see him trying to fit in at parties, trying to connect with people, and people are looking at him strangely, right? It's pretty uncomfortable. It's very difficult for him to connect. Later on, Chris comes across the man for whom he took the blame for that murder. And of course, he has a lot of anger, right? So this is an issue that he obviously needs to resolve. But most of the film really focuses on Chris and his relationship to Carol. Now, Carol is Chris's ex-high school teacher who stayed in touch with Chris during the 20 years he was in prison. But more than anything, Carol helped Chris gain an early release. So Chris is naturally grateful. I mean, he's so grateful that he finds himself, those feelings of gratitude change into feelings of romance, right? Into romantic feelings for Carol. So Chris is really interested in starting a relationship with Carol, but Carol's married. And she's trying to work through her own problems, right? She has problems with her family. She's not connecting with her husband, who doesn't really see her as sexually attractive. There's no intimacy there. And she's estranged from her own daughter as well. So Carol is in her own little prison. And so you can see the metaphor of prison is very appropriate for this film. Okay, so let's talk about this theme, freeing ourselves from our prisons. Because really, this is what we're doing every single day of our lives. I mean, we all want to strip away the layers of false beliefs, fears, and social conditioning that we've all been subjected to and really live authentically, to be who we truly are, and to embrace that freedom. Yes, we might want success, we want to live our passions, to fulfill our dreams, but none of those things can happen without our authenticity, without our true personal freedom. So this drive for freedom, for authenticity, is really what the spiritual path of enlightenment that we all are on is all about. We need to be careful though, because as we go towards enlightenment, which is self-realization, understanding who we truly are as our divine essence, and living from that divine essence, we can't forget our humanity. We have to embrace both our spiritual essence as well as our humanity. After all, this was one of the main messages of the spiritual teacher, Jesus Christ. He was saying, hey, I'm divine just like you are, but I'm also human just like you are. So we need to keep that in mind. Okay, so how can we free ourselves from our prisons? Well, I'm going to talk about this in relation to this persona that we all inhabit and the three layers of this persona: false self, wounded self, and true self. The false self is the social mask that we put on for the world, the facade, usually to protect something underneath, the part of us that was hurt, that is our wounded self. So the wounded self is that part of us that was hurt, that part of us that carries emotions such as shame and guilt underneath that we also need to tend to. But underneath that lies our true self. That's who we truly are, our authenticity. This is where our freedom lies. So let's briefly talk about this false self, the top layer. As I said, it typically takes the form of a facade or a social mask that we show the world. Now, on the one hand, this can be the protector side of us, right? That we protect, as I said, our wounded self. So this might be our angry side of us. But it also is the side of us that is trying to get some need met, but it does so in some unhealthy way. In other words, it's pursuing some ego drive for example, control, approval, or safety and separation. Now, there's nothing wrong with any of those things, right? We all need some approval, some control in our lives, and safety. The thing is, the ego pursues these excessively. It becomes the end-all be-all, right? And because it does so to try to validate our self-worth through these things. For example, my ego might be having me chase after approval so that I can show the world how good I am, right? That I am a good person, that I'm a worthy person. And of course, this is unhealthy. So the key is to talk to the false self, to really listen to it and to get its needs met. This is what we need to do. So when it comes to the angry protector side, just by listening to it, we can dissipate that anger, and then we can find out what it needs, so that perhaps we need to stand up for ourselves more so that it doesn't have to be so angry, so it doesn't have to be so protective. Conversely, we can listen to that false self and find out what its needs are regarding approval, control, and safety. And again, see how we can meet those needs in a healthy way. By doing this, we dispel the false self, the social masks that we put on for the world, and stop doing things for the ego and do things for our true self, for our own inherent self-worth. Just a quick side note about the false self. Obviously, a part of all of this is replacing those beliefs and values that don't resonate with us. Now, that's a much bigger conversation, so I'm not going to go into that right now, but please keep that part in mind. So once we cut through the false self, finding ways to meet our needs in healthier ways and removing those social masks, right, that inauthentic part of ourselves, we can get to our wounded self. Now, our wounded self consists of those emotions such as shame, guilt, fear, hurt, that we're trying to protect. And those emotions are unexpressed. They're connected to unresolved issues from our past. So the way to deal with our wounded selves is to find out how we might be experiencing these negative emotions in the present moment, how we might be getting triggered. That is this shame and guilt, fear and hurt especially. And find out how those emotions are connected to some unresolved issue from our past. I've talked about this extensively in previous videos, but here's the gist of it. When we find ourselves being triggered in the present moment, such as we're feeling hurt, we need to ask ourselves the question, when was the first time this happened? And let the answer come to us. And when we find out, we can go back in time when we were a child and we can address that issue. We can go back and talk to that part of us, that inner child, listen to it, really listen, and express those emotions that we suppressed so that we finally release them. And finally, we can tell ourselves the truth, the message that we didn't tell ourselves in the past. That message of truth, of love, that we didn't hear at that time, so that we can resolve that issue and be free of it in the present moment. As you can see, to be free from these parts of ourselves, this false self and wounded self, we need to listen to them and meet their needs, which of course is just meeting our own needs. This is a very important part of it. And as we do so, we get down to our true self, right? We move through the false self, wounded self, to express who we truly are, our true self, which is innocence, love. That's who we truly are, and that's the person that we were born into this lifetime. So what did you take as a major life lesson from this film? I would love to hear from you in comments below. And for more movies, tips, and life lessons, please go to my website, thezenofhollywood.com. That's thezenofhollywood.com. And please like this video and subscribe to my channel. Thanks for watching. See you next time.